Hello and welcome. My name is John Allen from Oxfam. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to Save the Children and to ProWash for hosting and facilitating this event, and to the Global Wash Cluster and the German Wash Network. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have an introduction, an overview to this new guidance on market-based programming in WASH. This isn't meant to be a comprehensive training. It'll be a pretty short presentation, but more the idea is to get a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a preview for what is in this guidance, so that you can use it in your work. It's intended to support WASH practitioners in implementing market-based programming, as well as for others in the coordination and monitoring of market-based programming, and used for others outside of the WASH sector. Those who we work with, including cash and market specialists, those in coordination functions, and those in business support. So I hope you'll find it useful. Let's jump in. Let's dive into this tour and take a look at what is in the MVP guidance. So the guidance is organized according to the Humanitarian program management cycle. So you'll see that here it's divided into 7 chapters. The first chapter of which is actually an introduction to market-based programming in WASH, what it is, why it's done, what are the outcomes. And sort of following that introduction, we've got these different sections of the program management cycle, starting with assessment, proceeding with response analysis, and then going on to design and implementation, and then followed by monitoring and preparedness. And then lastly, there is a chapter, a section on coordination, which of course runs across these other 5 phases of the cycle. You'll see here on the screen, each of these sections, each of these phases, they are an individual chapter within the guidance, so you can use the guidance as a standalone resource. For example, if you're just interested in market assessments, you can go to chapter 2. And each of those chapters are split up into 2 or 3 steps. So it's intended to be followed in a stepwise fashion for each of those different stages, each of those different components of conducting market-based programming. So that's how the guidance is structured. Now, what we'll do is we'll go straight into having a quick peek at each of these chapters, each of these sections. So let's start that now. Let's start with assessment. So what you'll find, this is what the first page of the assessment chapter of the guidance looks like. And you'll see that kind of greeting you here on your screen. It's split up, introduces the key steps: preparation, assessment, and analysis. Some key messages, takeaways for the chapter. And then lastly, we've compiled a number of key resources. So you'll find these for each of the chapters. And as much as possible, we've tried to include a lot of very useful guidance within the document. But there's always more. There's always a lot of detail that's been written already. And for that, we link you to these other external resources. So be sure to make use of those, especially if you're need more information on a particular topic. As I mentioned, these are the 3 key steps here. So generally, what you'll find in chapter 2 will be details according to those steps, starting with preparation. And so you'll find, in the preparation section of the chapter, you'll find information on how to select the critical market to assess, followed by how you can go about defining research questions and objectives. And then this is followed with a section on how to select market assessment tools. So what you are looking at on your screen is kind of the next page of the guidance. It's showing a few of the considerations for a couple of these steps. And this is generally what the guidance looks like. It's got sort of instructions there with information. And you'll find there are boxes throughout the guidance, sometimes on the right side of the pages or your screen. And some of these little boxes have more information, some quick tips, and others of them, like this one here on the bottom right, you can actually click through. So in this topic, it's about research questions. And if you're interested in learning more about that, we've actually got a specific annex on that. So you can click through. That will take you to Annex 3 in this case, and we've got some real examples of some research questions for real market assessments. These were conducted in Lebanon, in Afghanistan, and in Somalia. So you can have a look at those if you're in the process of developing such questions while preparing for market assessment. You can take a look at those, and you'll find that there's other similar sort of buttons that you can press and get some more in-depth details within the annexes of the guidance. And then while you're here on Annex 3, there'll be a button for you to click back to, and that will take you right back to where you left off in Chapter 2. So yeah, and just to mention the other sections that are included within this chapter, we've got, of course, a section on conducting the assessment itself. That starts with identifying who the market actors are in the selected market system, and then including those on the demand side, the supply side, those in the market environment and in supporting services. And then sort of having done that, how one can go about conducting interviews, which of course is an important part of any market assessment, starting with what type of questions and topics that you can ask. Of course, these will vary a lot according to your chosen market system. We have a lot of different market systems within WASH. It could be latrine pans, it could be menstrual products, soap, any number of things, as well as services. So we don't have every single question you could possibly ask about all those, but we do have some examples. And then the type of topics that you want to consider while developing those interview guides. So there's some instruction on both qualitative and quantitative data collection in the field. And as I mentioned, there are annexes that have some example questions, compliments of colleagues from CRS based on market assessment conducted in Nigeria. And yes, just to mention this here, so we were just looking at Annex 3, those examples of research questions. You'll see here there's actually 19 other annexes. There's a broad range of topics, ranging from how to calculate a minimum expenditure basket to examples of pre-crisis market assessment done in Bangladesh. All sorts of really good stuff here. So just to say, don't forget the annexes. In addition to clicking through them within the guidance, you can also see this in the table of contents if you're interested in learning more about a particular topic. So some really useful stuff here. And then yeah, just wrapping up on Chapter 2 on the market assessment. The last section of the chapter focuses on analyzing the findings, what to do with that quantitative and qualitative data, and how to summarize key insights. And it finishes with some examples of market maps taken from some real market assessment work completed in Lebanon. Great. So that's Chapter 2. You'll see we've already clicked through here to Chapter 3. Following the market assessment phase is response analysis. So looking here, you'll see the format looks very familiar. We've got those key steps, key messages, and key resources here for you. And then in this chapter, our key steps are on analyzing the feasibility and appropriateness of market-based programming, choosing the intervention type, and conducting a risk analysis. And so we'll see for the first section, again, there's another annex. It includes questions to use that you can use when assessing the capacity of the market, any barriers that exist. You'll find that in Section 1. Section 2, as I mentioned, is focused on choosing the intervention type. So here we present the range of types of market-based programming, ranging simply, from those that are aware of markets, perhaps using direct assistance when this is done, and then continuing on to examples of using markets. including through cash and voucher assistance. So that section looks at when CVA, cash and voucher assistance, is appropriate and feasible, how one can go about selecting a particular modality, looking at cash versus vouchers, and then the types of the type of options that exist. There's also some information on multi-purpose cash, MPC, and how this is done to achieve wash outcomes. Of course, multi-purpose cash is inherently a multi-sector initiative, but it can be done to achieve some wash outcomes. And so that's the using markets section. And then we also have a section on supporting markets. And here in the response analysis chapter, we have information on doing that analysis of both the supply and the demand sides. And so we have key considerations for those, as well as for looking at the market environment and supporting services. And then lastly, you'll find an introduction to strengthening market systems, longer term interventions going beyond shorter term direct support to market actors, looking to having a broader impact on the wider market system. Also, as I mentioned, there is a section in this chapter on risk analysis. It looks at some of the particular risks within CVA programming, as well as risks specific for gender and protection. And then also some special considerations for conflict analysis. So you'll find that in the risk analysis section of the chapter. So great. So continuing on with chapter 4, which is on design and implementation. Yeah, very, very familiar. You see sort of the same structure here. And again, we're using those 3 main primary types of market-based programming, starting with using markets with a focus on CVA, followed by supporting markets, and then on strengthening markets. So this chapter is quite beefy. There's a lot of rich information here. Hopefully, it's very practical and useful for you. So in the chapter on using markets with a focus on CVA, this is a section on working with end users, starting with the process of targeting and selecting recipients of CVA, continuing with the registration and verification processes, how those can be done, as well as information for data protection, protecting people's information. Continuing on within CVA, we have how to go about determining the transfer amount and frequency, considering the program objectives, the particular needs of the affected population, and the gap that exists between people's needs and what they have, what the market can supply. There's also a section on MPC, multi-purpose cash, including with information in the annexes on how the minimum expenditure basket, the MEB, is developed. And there are also considerations listed here on frequency and timing. And then lastly, here we have information on communication and accountability. So there's guidance on what information should be communicated and how affected people can be engaged, as well as on encashment and delivery of assistance, what type of information goes in SOP, standard operating procedures. There's also guidance on working with financial service providers and working with vendors, including processes of selecting vendors and contracting them, as well as training them. And then continuing on within the chapter, so this is using markets, then we have sort of the subsection on supporting markets. There are examples of market support interventions in annexes. There are quite a number of different types of market support, and how you can go about identifying market actors to support while designing an intervention, and how to support market actor functionality. So, what are we talking about here? Grants, guarantees, how to support market actors gain access to financing, as well as things like capacity building and providing them technical support as a form of market support, and also enhancing systems for communications and accountability. There's also guidance here on supporting people's access to markets. We're not just working on the supply side, but also on the demand side and how affected people can access markets and how we can build demand for goods or services within the WASH sector. And then lastly, we have the section on strengthening markets or market systems. There's an introduction here on sort of when and under what condition these interventions can be done. And there's some really useful and interesting examples here, including on developing service delivery models, supporting the development of policy and regulation. There's some information on social marketing and building demand for paid services, and on developing business plans. And then lastly, in this chapter, you'll find some methods that are used in strengthening market systems, including formative research, conducting a detailed financial analysis. There's an example of this in the annexes, as well as methods in human-centered design, such as prototyping and iteration. Excellent. So we move on now to monitoring. So actually what we've got within the guidance is a mule framework for market-based programming in WASH. So this is exciting. We've developed and drawn from a number of existing indicators which have been used in market-based programs through consultation with various countries and programs. And what we've got here is this mule framework is based on the 5 market outcomes which can lead to achieving WASH outcomes within a program. So like any program, any WASH program, we want to achieve those outcomes of reduced mortality and morbidity, so better health outcomes, and also enhancing resilience. So in order to get there, we have these 5 market outcomes. So you'll see those on your screen now. So, what we've got here is sort of combining which component of WASH we're working on. It could be, any aspect to water supply, excreta disposal, and so forth. And then these 5 outcomes. So we've got the availability of outcome, whether WASH goods and services are sold and distributed, near the target population. We've got access. Can people access them? The quality of those items is an outcome in market-based programming. As well as finally the awareness and use of those goods and services. So what we've got is the framework is divided into the different types of monitoring that are conducted, starting with outcome monitoring, and then output monitoring, and then process monitoring. So you'll see those on your screen. So what you can do is you can actually click through here on this page and go directly to the outcome monitoring section. It takes you to a page that looks like this. So as I mentioned, we have these 5 different types of outcomes here. And this part of the framework really focuses on the first 3 of these: access, availability, and quality. We find awareness and use is monitored in kind of the typical way that it normally is. So we emphasize these. So we look at access, and we've got an example. So here, this is for access to soap. So there's an outcome here, and then a particular indicator is mentioned here. And we've also got examples of these in the annexes for other market systems, for menstrual products, water supply, household sanitation as well. So this is the outcome indicator. And then what you can do on the right side of the screen, you'll see this particular outcome, this access outcome, is then divided up, and it's got these output indicators. These are in the annexes. So you can click through on that, and then it'll take you to the annex. So here we've got particular output and indicators for the access outcome. And these are split up into 3 different types of data, how this is measured in the field. We have the self-reported access of the targeted population. We also have the targeted population's reporting of any access barriers. And then we've also got measurements of the affordability of goods and services, such as by measuring the cost of goods and services. So this is just a quick taste here of what you'll find in the annexes. So this is for the first of these 3 categories. You'll see indicators here, and then questions that could be used by teams while doing monitoring activities in the field. So there's quite a number of questions and indicators to choose from, and you'll find that will depend on which market system you're working with. Again, the example here is soap, but they can fairly easily be adapted according to the type of intervention. Actually, I'll go back, and then and again, those exist for access as well as for outcome and quality. Also, just to say, stay tuned. We're also going to have WASH outcome indicators for multi-purpose cache interventions. This is going to be added to the guidance and will be useful for MPC. So next, so what we've covered so far is outcome and output monitoring. We also have information on, we also have guidance on process monitoring, how to use data within programs to track and then adapt the intervention. So you use information such as from beneficiary lists, PDMs, a range of different sources to adapt programming. And then lastly, within the monitoring chapter, we've also got information on risk monitoring. So some tips for doing this, including considering those gender and protection risks. All right, and then coming to the last stage of our program management cycle, we have preparedness, or it may be the first stage, depends where you are. It is a cycle. So this chapter is split up into institutional preparedness and programmatic preparedness. Institutional preparedness includes staff and capacity. So looking at what resources exist within the organization aiming to do market-based programming. And then in addition to that, looking at another aspect of institutional preparedness, which is having systems and procedures. So like having framework agreements in place or standard operating procedures. Have these been developed? Some very useful considerations for organizations preparing to do market-based programming, perhaps in advance of a crisis occurring. Not only do we have institutional preparedness, we also have programmatic preparedness. And one of the key things we're talking about here is doing a pre-crisis market assessment. So we link to the PCMA tool here for how to do that assessment, monitoring, and analysis. And then lastly, on the topic of strengthening the resilience of market actors, which is a preparedness measure, we sort of point back to chapter 5 on that section on market system strengthening. So how those interventions can be done, which can sort of enhance resilience in the markets and prepare for crisis. So that concludes chapter 6. And as I mentioned, there's one more here. This is on coordination. And here we've got two main sections within this chapter. We've got coordination with stakeholders, and then we've got coordination across the program cycle. So just quickly here, program coordination with stakeholders. Of course, we've got the WASH sector or the WASH cluster. And so this includes sometimes there is a technical working group for market-based programming or for cash and markets that is activated, that is set up by the cluster. And so here we've got some resources for you, including with thanks to the Iraq Technical Working Group, a summary of a terms of reference for that twig. So you can see how a twig may be set up. And then we've got sort of list of roles of the cluster, and that's divided into roles for the cluster where there is WASH sector specific market-based programming, as well as roles for WASH within multi-purpose cache with that multi-sector intervention. Of course, the WASH cluster or the sector is not the only way we do coordination. We also coordinate with government, and especially in our sector, public utilities are important stakeholders. So we have guidance on that coordination as well as with private sector actors. And then lastly, we do have multi-sector coordination. So the key here are the cache working groups that are often set up within a response. So we've got an example of our terms of reference here, and how the WASH sector can interface and collaborate with those CEWGs. And then lastly, we've got coordination across all the different stages of the program management cycle, all these stages that we've talked about up until now, starting with assessment, continuing through all the way to preparedness. And that includes things like defining standards. And here we link to the WASH clusters, accountability and quality assurance initiative. And then we've got considerations for these different stages of the program management cycle, including those for WASH, again, WASH specific MVP, and then for multi-purpose cache. So you'll find all that in the coordination section, as well as in the annexes. And then just to as we wrap up here, again, there's lots of useful information in the annexes, and I'd like to highlight a couple of these. We've got specific guidance developed on CVA for menstrual products, with thanks to the Menstrual Hygiene Management in Emergencies group has developed that guidance for us here. A lot of other useful information, including guidance on cache for latrines developed by UNHCR. We've got all those indicators which I've mentioned. Have a look at those for a lot more. And then we've also got a lot of rich examples on the use of multi-purpose cache for WASH outcomes. So that sort of wraps us up here as sort of the quick tour. We really hope that this guidance can be used by many, and that we can kind of use this tying across various capacity building efforts that are taking place. So we really hope this guidance is useful to you, whether you're using it in your programs, whether you're building the capacity of colleagues and partners, or working in a supporting role, perhaps coming from another sector or on the coordination side. So we hope it's very useful. Thanks a lot, and please hope you look forward to diving into the guidance and making use of it. Thanks a lot.